Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our episode of Radical Thoughts on Innovation. I'm Maya Barber, and as always, I'm here with John Hall and our special guest, Danielle Mazza. Danielle, can you start off by introducing yourself? And I also want to ask consumers can tell you what's broken, but not always how to fix it. So, how do you turn messy human behavior into real innovation?
Okay, for sure. Well, first of all, hi, I'm Danielle. I am at Upstart. We are a lending marketplace, and I have been there about 2.5 years, but I've spent my whole career in consumer insights at brands like Mattel and Taco Bell and Roku, and even was consultant on my own company for a while. So, consumer behavior, consumer insights is what I do. It's what I love, regardless of the vertical. I will always be passionate about it. Love the idea that they can tell you what's broken, but not how to fix it. They can't tell you, but they can show you. And that's my opinion. So if you just ask somebody, how should I fix this? How should I make this better? They're not brainstormers. They're not product designers. They're not marketers. So they don't know. They can tell you, here's an issue I have. But if we get creative with how we get them to respond to us, I think that's where the magic happens. When I was at Taco Bell, we had this initiative. We were charged with designing what we call the drive-through of the future. And if we could do anything we wanted to in the drive-through, we didn't care how much it cost, what it took, whether it fit with the existing functionality, what would we do as a team internally? So we did some really amazing co-creation with consumers. So we didn't take them to focus group facilities. We went to more open, creative spaces. And we brought some people from Taco Bell in, and we brought groups of consumers in, and we had all kinds of materials. Think, boxes and construction paper and Play-Doh and all these different things. And after talking about drive-throughs and things that they've experienced that they like, things they've experienced that they don't like at the drive-through, what drives them crazy, we put them in teams, and then they had to go build a physical drive-through that was
Mm.
better and literally build it there. We had them there for several hours. It wasn't obviously, a 1 hour situation. And they had to, as teams, while we walked around and watched what they were doing, meet with, sit there with other customers, other people who go through drive-throughs and build one and then show us why it's better. Like, what did they build into that drive-through that makes it better, that makes it different from what we have now? And because they don't have any corporate constraints, they just go. And so
Mhm.
you found out all the things we could do that would make it better. And we had little cars, right? So they had to drive through it, show it, demonstrate it to everybody else, drive it through, show what they had done differently here, what they'd done differently there. And it was amazing. If we'd asked them, just say, what could make the drive-through better? They'd say, I don't know, just don't get my order wrong. But putting them in that creative situation, so many cool ideas came out of that. But that, some that we could implement, some that we couldn't, some that you could implement maybe a few years down the road when tech changed. But such cool things. And for the longest time, we still had some of their little clay drive-through employees. They made little drive-through employees behind the window out of clay that we kept at our offices and kept the spirit of that alive.
That's very cool. And you've mentioned now this idea of them kind of coming at it from, not having preconceived notions and being more creative and looking at your career, how you've worked in so many different companies, the Taco Bell,
Hmm.
Mattel, Roku, now Upstart, which seemingly don't have much in common. I'm curious to
Right.
what extent you've found, that you're able to, leverage that cross category thinking or cross industry thinking for big ideas. How does that play out for you?
I think it's a benefit, honestly. If I'd always worked in the same industry, I think the things, maybe the methodologies or the consumers that I'd been exposed to would have fit inside a nice narrow lane. But when you go into all these different lanes, what happens is over here, oh, this company or this industry does something completely different, does research in a different way. It was an adjustment when I first went from my first job at Mattel, where I stayed for 8 years, going to Taco Bell because the function was radically different. But then that ended up being a positive to me because then you learn all new things. And I have had no shortage of situations where I could take something we did at one company or something I learned there and apply it to what I'm doing now. So I think every one of them teaches me something new. When I was at Mattel, we used to do something called state of research. And what I mean by that is we would take an area of the company like Barbie. I worked on Barbie for 6 of my 8 years, which was amazing, and working with kids was incredible. But we would do State of Barbie. And this was a big, huge qualitative initiative where we'd go out maybe every 5 years and understand what is going on with the brand when you talk to kids, when you talk to moms, but especially the girls, and understand Barbie's role in their lives and where Barbie and doll play fits in with all the other things they do, like playing outside and video games and sports, and really understand where does this brand stand in people's lives right now. I brought that concept over to Taco Bell when we were refocusing on value. And we wanted value not to mean what it meant when I started there, which was cheap and the kind of food you could buy with the money you found between your couch cushions, but real value for the money. So value is cost plus something else. You have to be getting something great for the money, whether it's you're getting a lot of food or you're getting unique items or they taste really good. Value doesn't come just from cheap. So I said we need to do state of value research. I want to understand what value means to people in not just in fast food, but in their lives. Start big. What are companies that offer value and how do those companies offer value? Whether it's Walmart, it's Target, it's Toyota, I don't care who it is. I want to hear what that means to people, then drill it down to our industry, then drill it down to our brand and hear how we're delivering it, how we're not delivering it, where are our guardrails as a brand. And this took the form of lots of different qualitative conversations, several different markets, sometimes in focus groups, and also in restaurants. Just walking in, sometimes having people meet us there so we could talk in a restaurant, other times just walking up to people and say, hey, if we give you some Taco Bell bucks, will you talk to us? So that we could we had the very structured components, but we layered on the wild card stuff, if you will, and really understood what role value played in people's lives. Why does it matter that fast food is a good value? Why do you care? And how do brands deliver it to really structure and guide our strategy for how we were going to make sure we were a true value brand going forward?
That's great. And I want to pick up on your point about kind of mining the consumer, because it sounds like a lot of what you do really does start with really kind of understanding what's on their mind or what matters to them. I mean, have you ever seen anything in research where a consumer said or did something that, completely changed how you thought about your product or brand? Anything that dramatic?
People do all kinds of wild things in research. That's the best part of it, of doing, whether it's focus groups or lots of shop alongs. We did tons of shop alongs with people shopping for TVs and streaming players when I was at Roku. So just being face to face with them or in their homes or on ethnographies is so valuable. I think the funniest things I've seen were also at Mattel. So we had what we called play pattern research, and we had an area in our building where kids would come in and they would do various types of research. They'd be instructed to do different things, and we could sit behind the glass. And mostly we observed play. We wanted to see play. We didn't want to just, you know, sell a doll and then not know what happens with it. We wanted to watch kids play with them. And so we did some play pattern research where we had girls come in and they would always come in friendship pairs. That was a good standard for young kids. It's a comfort thing, right? They come in with
Yeah.
their best friend. And so, yeah, immediately they're in play mode because that's what they already play together at home. And we would give them a variety of dolls to play with and then just let them do what they wanted. And I think the funniest thing to me was how Ken came into the picture. And it's kind of funny after seeing the Barbie movie too, to think back on this. Because poor Ken, we said he's not a doll, he's an accessory. This poor man gets no part in any of the play. I've seen kids literally sit down, they have Barbie, they have, Skipper or friends, Teresa sitting there playing, and then one of them will grab Ken and go, well, I'm going to work. Toss him. I saw a girl toss Ken over their shoulder into the corner and he never came back into the play. And I thought, wow, that's really funny. They liked the doll. They played with the dolls that were more like them. And that was fun. And maybe their dad went to work every morning. And so that was kind of like, okay, that's his role. He's a provider. He's in the corner. We never see him again. It just used to crack me up because they're so honest. That's how they play.
Yeah. And then, in your opinion, do you think too much data can actually kill a bold idea? So, have you ever seen a great concept get turned down in focus groups or, research to death in that manner?
Mhm. First of all, when it comes to focus groups or qualitative research, one of my rules is you never make a go, no go decision based on qualitative. Qualitative can enhance your decision that you might make based on quantitative, but I don't think it should ever drive a go, no go decision because by nature it is qualitative. It is a small number of people. You are looking more at the whys there versus what should we do. It's more how should we do it and why should we do it that way. So I don't think it can kills innovation. I think it hones it. I think it directs it. I think it makes it smarter. But I would not use it to ever kill a product just because somebody in a focus group didn't like it. I can remember developing products for the value menu at Taco Bell. Oh, we were developing breakfast, as a matter of fact. And we did do a whole bunch of taste testing with people in all different markets and put the actual products we were considering in front of them. And there was somebody who hated this. We had tried sweet chalupas, and so we had one that was had a peach filling in it. And this guy in the group just absolutely trashed it. He said it's gummy. I feel like I'm an old person with no teeth could eat this. And so we dubbed it Grandpa's Peach Chalupa in the back room, but we still tested it to see how it would do quantitatively. He turned out to have provided the exact reason why it failed, but I wouldn't make the decision based on just those people tasting the product.
Building on this idea of, things that don't survive. I mean, every company's kind of got that graveyard of ideas, whether it was
Mhm.
budget cuts, bad timing, or, senior management, not seeing the power of the idea. I mean, as you kind of look back at your career, is there a single or biggest obstacle you've seen that really keeps good ideas from surviving or making it to the marketplace? What's sort of that big barrier you sometimes have to deal with?
Yeah, there definitely those things happen. And like you said, sometimes it's timing, like trying to bring something to market and it's not the right time in the marketplace or it's not the right time for your brand to do these things. So that absolutely happens. I think the smartest things like companies can do in that situation is even if you can't do it now, don't forget it because maybe the time is coming. One of the ideas that came out of that build your own drive-through that I talked about was the idea of a license plate scanner that would then say, when you got up, it would see your license plate, scan it, and you got up to the window or to the drive-through menu, and it would say, "Would you like your regular order?" Or hi, or you could place an order ahead of time, and then it would scan it, and once you got there, you could do it. At the time, everyone was like, "That's impossible. We can't do anything like that. We can't scan. We can't have regular orders. There's no way to do all those things." Well, then apps came along and replaced that idea, where you could
Mhm.
pre-order and you could show up and say, "It's me, and I'm ready to pick up my order." Or you could have regular orders. So at the time, that was, absolutely laughed out, but it became another form of reality. And another thing that would happen is we instituted there what we called the golden palette rule. And that means if we've put a concept in front of consumers and they love it, and then they've gone out and they've tasted it and they love it, and they've seen the price and they want to buy it, that the executives can't kill it because they don't like it.
That's
And
pretty
that
interesting.
was, yeah, and that was the rules. Like you're not the core customer, first of all. And they were they embraced that so much. That's what I loved is they didn't say, well, no, we're the final decision makers, we're the executives, we're going to decide. They were like, you know what, you're right. We're not the consumer and we're not the end thing. And so even if I try it and I'm like, I would never buy this, if you prove to me that the consumers want it and love it, we're behind you. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, building off that, I was gonna say one of my favorite things to do is picking up my Starbucks order. I go into like my app, do like a pre-pickup, and just go in and walk in and get my Starbucks. I think that's one of the best things ever invented. I hate waiting in that Starbucks line in the morning.
Uh-huh. It's done. You just walk in, it's like, there, Maya, bye, I'm leaving.
Exactly. And you've been in
Yep.
a lot of different roles through your career, and I know you've had to sell insights upward. What's your playbook for getting a radical idea past execs who don't want to hear it? I know you talked about like, the golden palette rule, but is there anything else?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'd say it's twofold. One thing is, whenever possible, if you're working cross-functionally, you want to show everybody that it's not just the consumer who wants this, but that it works operationally, that it works financially. So, because that's obviously their questions are going to be, should we do it from the consumer point of view? Can we do it from an operational standpoint? And can we afford to do it? Does it make financial sense? If you bring all those three pieces together, you've really covered the bases in terms of what you need to show in terms of something that has potential that can be successful for the company. But more than that, a tool we started using long ago was show, don't tell. So if I've got focus groups or a one-on-one interview with a consumer, that I can play a clip and have the executive sit there and listen to a consumer telling them why they want something versus me summarizing it and not knowing if that was, if my summary is a genuine representation. When they see it, when you show it versus tell it, it does wonders for convincing people that something is the right thing to do because when they hear it directly like that, it's so powerful.
I want to talk about, I think a trend that's, racing around right now, no pun intended, which is speed, and this whole
Yeah.
notion about both on insights and on the innovation space that you want to be moving fast and breaking things. And, my thought is staying close to, humans and getting that sort of in-depth understanding does take some time. And kind of then, acting upon that in terms of coming up with solutions takes some time. But how do you see this sort of this move fast culture interacting with the desire to, have meaningful innovation? Is it an enhancer? Is it an enemy? Where do you see it on that continuum?
I feel like I embrace it and fight it at the same time, and I'll try to explain what I mean by that. So we have different tenets within our company now at Upstart that we try to live by. Making clever use of numbers is one of them. Rely on data, in other words, and another one is speed as a habit.
Hmm.
We've always kind of got these things in the back of our mind as we're doing things. What I'm seeing is that, first of all, sometimes speed is more of an ideal than an actual. So we can start that way, but there are just, if you're smart, you're still putting things through the right rigor and the right processes. You can't do speed. I don't think you can do speed and always do things perfectly at the same time. So there becomes in reality, even though speed is our habit, a need for slow down a little bit to make sure that everybody's on board, that all the people who need to see the survey agree that that's what we want to do, that we've really spent time analyzing the results smartly and have really thought through what we're doing. So I push a little bit to do as fast as possible while still doing it right. I have had situations where at the last minute, I'm asked to do research on a topic, whatever it might be. And then I walk in with the results and they say, oh, never mind, we just made a decision this morning. It's so frustrating. Or, you couldn't wait 2 hours if you knew this was coming. Like, after a month, what does 2 hours matter? And I've seen bad decisions be made in terms of like pricing products is one example that I can think of where I brought pricing data in this whole study and a decision had already been made literally 2 hours before to go in a different direction. I think, well, I don't know that if I'd come up with it on Friday instead of Monday that you would have followed my advice anyway. But, again, I'm always trying to be as fast as possible and loop people in on the timeline, but make sure we still do it right.
And then Danielle, I have one more question for you.
Mhm.
After all these years of watching real people with real products, what's one thing that you think companies still don't get about human behavior?
I love that. Here's something I hear from people a lot. People say, I don't know if I trust research because people say one thing and do it another, or consumers don't know what they want. And I think we're not giving them credit, consumers enough credit for actually being pretty genuine in the way they respond to your questions or the way they interact with your products. If you just do a survey, there might be some people who, just want to get it done and don't give you thoughtful responses. I honestly believe that's in the minority. But also, if you combine that work with other things, then you start to see how true and real what they're telling you is. I've been in people's homes, right? We talked about ethnographies we did ethnographies for late night at Taco Bell, and we were out with people till 2 in the morning because we were doing the late night business. Like I said, I've been in people's homes. I have watched kids interact with toys in their natural surroundings. I have seen people shopping for TVs or unboxing TVs and trying to set them up. When you see that, I don't feel that there's two different worlds, like what they say and what they do. I see those two really start to connect and see how they genuinely feel about your brand, how they genuinely interact with your products. I think that genuine behavior and that belief in people should be used to shape our decisions and should be used to shape our brands. And I have more of a trust in respondents, trust in people than I think a lot of brands might on the surface think we shouldn't have.
Sure. Yeah. John, do you have any more questions for Danielle?
We spent a lot of time talking about real humans. I'm just curious about, thinking the insight space, your view of AI, the use of, synthetic twins and that kind of thing. I mean, I'd just be curious what your take is and how you're kind of approaching it right now.
Well, I am fortunate right now to be at an AI powered company. So AI is absolutely something we think about using every single day. How can it make us more efficient? How can it make our decisions faster? How can we automate things? So we're fully embracing it. When it comes to things like synthetic twins, I have had the opportunity to try that out. I did a massive segmentation study at Upstart when I first joined. And when I did a workshop to introduce those segments to our growth team, we brought in the original vendor to do all kinds of different activities and exercises. And they brought in an AI twins thing where they had loaded up the segments in there so that as I broke people into six different teams to represent the six different segments, they could go up there and ask that segment questions.
Hmm.
And, as they were starting to think about how would I market to this group and how would I talk to them, they were able to just go up and ask questions on a computer as if they're talking to, Maureen in Massachusetts and she's, part of segment three and find out how she responds. And the responses were so spot on in terms of how I think those segments would have answered because I've lived in their heads for the past year and a half, right? So you asked me and I will tell you how I think they would feel and how they would respond. They were not just spot on, they were deep and thoughtful. They wasn't a two-word response. It was almost like someone was thinking out loud and you were in an interview with somebody one-on-one and moderating, and they were giving you a very thoughtful response to your question. So I'm so on board with being able to use these tools where we can test them. I mean, be smart, make sure they're doing what you think they're doing and they're guiding you in the right direction. Absolutely test them and put them through rigor. But I only look at it as something that can just boost my capacity, boost the types of input I can get from consumers or, AI consumers and bring more insights to the organization. And that's a win for me.
And Danielle, we're getting close to time here, but I want to thank you so much for coming on today. And thank you guys all for viewing. Stay tuned for our next episode of Radical Thoughts on Innovation for next month. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you, John.